thanks again for another great motion picture. It's been a long way since Gods and Monsters many, many years ago. And just wanted to say with this film, did you feel, although you've just been in the last part of it, do you feel now that the closure of this, what kind of feelings do you have about it, and did it present any special problems for you or any challenges?
Yeah, I thought the real challenge was to make sure it was a satisfying climax. So I was very aware of not only the two films that I'd made, but the three that came before. So for example, the film opens with an overture of all the main themes from all 5 movies put together. And at the end, I don't want to talk about it too much, but I did add this thing that sort of brought you back into the spirit of all the other movies and kind of, I think, acts as a tribute to the whole phenomenon. Yeah, I've been on. I started this 2 years and 8 months ago, so I'd say happy. It's been great. Yeah. Oh, hi, Bill Condon, director of Breaking Dawn. Sorry. Hi.
Hi. My question is. The visualization of the vampire's powers, specifically like Benjamin and Kate and some of the other powers that are more mental in nature.
Yes.
What was your approach on actually bringing those to the screen?
Yeah, that was a real challenge because you're right. These are mental powers. Bella's shield, for example, is something that nobody sees, or Alec's power, So, but early on, again, that's one of the adaptations when you work in a visual medium. I thought, it can't just all be something that gets suggested, but, take Bella's power. I really wanted to make it as subtle as possible, so that it really felt like, is it there or isn't it? It's sort of an emanation. It really, if you watch it, the first time it comes off her, you see a bit of her shape. It really feels like it's something that's part of her. But I didn't want it to be this kind of, Wizard of Oz bubble around or anything like that. So all of them presented specific challenges, for Alec's power. I don't know, something funky. That felt like that was the darkest power, and so we really made it feel like a horror movie, like a Hammer horror movie. Really went for it as a really nasty thing. And throughout, I think we were trying to err on the side of subtlety.
The cast has grown exponentially in this one.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering for you, how was it introducing these characters and giving them enough time for the audience to, absorb them, basically?
Yeah, no, I mean, part of the turn-on for me is that, I think each director has gotten to introduce new chunks of people, and this is the movie where I got to do that and work with all these wonderful new actors. But yeah, it was part of the casting process right there, was realizing that everyone had to pop in a very short time. So that by the time you got onto that field and you kind of knew who everybody was and what they could do. It's a very interesting challenge because they don't get introduced until 40 minutes into the movie. And then a half hour later, they have their final scene, So I attribute that all to the gifts of the actors. They all took it so seriously. They all had complete backstories that they brought to those moments that they have, and I think they all successfully managed to make their characters pop.
Bruce Kirkland, Toronto Sun.
Hi.
Good morning. I'm curious about. I obviously you didn't direct all the films.
No.
But you've seen all the films. You know the whole mythology. Could you talk about the arc that the Bella character goes through and the performances that you got, especially in the latter stages?
Sure.
From Kristen Stewart, because her character, more than any other of the key cast, goes through changes that no one else, even approaches.
No, it's really true, and it's no secret I worship at the altar of Kristen Stewart, But I think, actually, her arc was pretty. It wasn't that big an arc across the first 3 movies. And in the beginning of the part 1 of this movie, she's in the spot where she'd been kind of, she fell in love. She's a high school now graduate who fell in love with a guy and is going to marry him, But I've always said, we made this as one movie, and I feel that, if you look at these 2 movies together, it really speaks to the achievement of Kristen Stewart because she starts as that Bella that we've known from previous movies. She obviously, she becomes then pregnant and emaciated and loses her life and reinvented as a vampire. It's an amazing arc that she has across this, and it's so important for people to remember that we shot all that at the same time, So she would go from being this badass, warrior in this movie in the morning, and then she'd be emaciated in the afternoon. It was really an incredible thing to watch.
Is that a technical thing?
Well, I think she so embodies the character. She really, I think she has this extraordinary energy. She really is so focused when she is in something. I was really worried when we looked at the schedule, like, how are you going to do this? And it was this added challenge that she actually kind of got excited by, And I think mostly she was dying to play the vampire. I think she said it before, like she watched everybody else and said, "Oh, I could do that better," So this was her chance to prove it,
Bill, fight sequences in any film are
Yeah.
challenging at best, but
Yeah.
here you have a major battle sequence, something we don't typically see unless it's a blockbuster
Right.
action-adventure film. What kind of challenges did you face in designing and executing and working with Jeff Amata
Right.
in choreographing,
Yeah.
plus having your crossover with your actors between first, second unit and doing a lot of their own stunts?
Yeah, that sequence, the sequence we're not supposed to talk about, was the biggest challenge of either movie. Battle sequences are hard. Here's what's harder, okay? Usually in a battle sequence, you get horses and big flags and banners, and you get weapons. You don't have any of that here. These people are almost impossible. You can't puncture their skin. The only way you can kill them is by pulling their heads off. So that became a big thing. How do you do endless variation on that? And yes, working with Jeff was amazing to try to, just create the ballet of all that. We did, a previous film of this that we worked on constantly across 6 months. So that yes, and then it was odd going back and forth between first and second unit. But then I have to say, you do all that, and then the real work starts. It was 1 year of solid work on that scene with one of our two editors, Ian Katz, really. Ian Slater really spent most of his time on that scene, creating a whole. Even though we designed it a certain way, we created a whole new architecture for it in post. So. It's a huge challenge, but it was part of the turn on here that we finally, got to do something like that.
So you talk about Kirsten balancing the duality of her character in the two films. I also, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I also kind of noted a duality in tone in the two films.
Yes.
This one seems a little bit more self-aware, a little bit more humor. How did you do that when you were filming them both at the same time? And also, how do you balance that humor with the seriousness?
Right. No, I think, I'd put a clip in from one of my favorite movies, Bride of Frankenstein, in the first movie, and it seemed to me that was a model for a movie that is very scary, but always, it's not about a wink, but it's about remembering that this is young adult fiction, and that there's it's not the world of Batman. It's got a different tone. And Michael Sheen to me perfectly embodies that. Because I think he's crazily scary, but also there's something that's very enjoyable about him at the same time. In terms of the tone, I think that the first act of this movie, the first half hour, up until the point when Charlie gets reintegrated into their lives, is very much part of that first movie. It really is the completion of Bella's story. And then you're right, the whole plot that takes over and Arena and the reintroduction of the vampires really made it into a different kind of. It's an epic action movie with vampires, and vampires, at least some of them have to be funny because they're so strange.
Hi.
Hello.
Bill, when we talking about the breaking down, part one and part two, did you at the beginning you conceive as two parts, or it was always like that?
Always like that, since I was involved, yeah.
And did you film everything,
Together.
Together?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we made it as one movie,
Easy.
Yeah. So that scene, the unmentioned scene, was shot actually 2 years ago. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, there's so much vampire lore in this one, and just a lot more content than typical with the Twilight series and the relationship storyline. How did you balance that? And do you think this is one of the ones that vampire lovers should definitely see of the series?
I think so. I have to say that's what drew me to Twilight when I first saw it. was I've just always loved vampire movies, and it was interesting because if you look at the Breaking Dawn Part 1, there's not one mean vampire to be seen. They're literally, it's just the Cullens there, that if there's any conflict, it's with the wolves. So I love the fact that this, came full circle and really is what it started out to be, a very cool original vampire movie. And yeah, it was great to, also the fact that they do have these special powers just gave it, I don't know, I find it like, I'm talking about the book now, it's just like very, very original, Ever? Oh, wow. I do think the Coppola, Bram Stoker Dracula movie that's a movie I just love,
Bill? Bill?
Yeah, hey.
Hey. You made such great, distinctive, independent movies, and even, Dreamgirls was like
Right.
a freestanding kind of thing. Can you talk about the demands and differences when you're working in a big tentpole franchise
Right.
like this?
Yeah, it's interesting because when you're actually making it, it's the same experience. You're working with your collaborators and the actors, and it's all about making it as good as it can be. But yeah, around the edges of how you put it together, there is this awareness of, and it was an interesting thing. I liked it actually. There's first of all the fan base and the fact that this seems to be like the most interactive franchise, where you're very aware of. I remember we were shooting the first thing we shot was on the street in Brazil. It was we were in a mad dash, and there were paparazzi there, and there were pictures online. I would say 20 minutes after we got off our first shot, and Kristen didn't have her wedding band on, and suddenly that was like going around the world, this big message. My God, what's going on? And we quickly scrambled and fixed it. It was that kind of. That's how kind of connected the base is. So I found that really kind of great the whole time. There's sometimes tension because you are being not literally true to details in the book, but mostly it's been. I've been very aware on this movie as opposed to other movies that you are making it for people who love it.
And anything on the production side, dealing with the studios?
No, they're pretty. Some it's not a big studio. I don't think they treat. And I have to say in production, these movies, they were still made on 50-day schedules, very much like the other movies. They don't become theyese big bloated things. They're a scrappier group of people.
Speaking of the fan community, we're all from it.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
So our reaction so far to hearing that there's a big battle change, and it's obviously different than the book. What can you tell fans about Stephenie Meyer's approval and involvement with making that happen?
Well, I mean, you could talk to her later, but it was her idea along with Melissa Rosenberg. They cooked it up one night at dinner, So I think it was, she'll tell you more about it, but she was intimately involved in every aspect of this production, and certainly in the creation of that idea, and then kind of the beats of the battle is stuff that's writing, and that's stuff we talked through as I was putting together that previs and everything. She was right there, Laura.
Can you talk just a little bit about, has there been any kind of effect of you being the director on these films? Have you seen any effect on your career? I mean, are the job offers different, or are you looking at job offers different? Or?
No, actually, I would say no. It seems I'm about to do a movie that's really at the same scale as the movies I made before. So, yeah, no, it's not like it's always you're looking for something that's going to really excite you, So far, nothing.
Hi, Bill. Can you talk a little bit about the CGI process that went into this? I mean, it seems to me that we have, just with Mackenzie Foy, that must have been an incredible challenge.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I think it was the biggest. We had over 2,000 visual effects shots on BD2, and we just finished them a few days ago, frankly. The biggest challenge was Renesmee, because the conceit of the movie, it's taking the idea in the book and kind of multiplying it, is that she go down the hall for for a Coke and come back and she would have grown an inch. That she's growing very, very fast. So that every time we see her, she is the size of she starts as a baby, 4-month-old, 6-month-old, and it's 2, 3, 4, 5 until she gets to the size of Mackenzie Foy, which is around 8. So, this is a process that's been done on a few movies. We had a great special effects team, Lola, who are the past masters of this. But this is a real challenge because it's trying to imagine Mackenzie Foy, take what we know of her, and imagine her at all those different ages, and making it photoreal and making it also connect in the scenes. So very, very, very complicated stuff. That we were again still working on a few days ago. I think the saving grace is that Renesmee is such a special creature. She isn't entirely human. So if there are things that are odd about it, I think that sort of plays into what's odd about Renesmee.
You mentioned the studio involvement a minute ago about how they
Yeah.
prevented this from becoming as bloated as perhaps some franchises do. Could you elaborate on that a bit, just about how they approached this and the differences in working with Summit Lionsgate?
Yeah, well, it was Summit on this movie, and I think they are used to making independent movies, so they didn't change that. It was no frills, and I like that. I think it wasn't, and I think the three leads have become huge movie stars, but it wasn't a big movie star experience for them either. There are these additional expenses that are crazy. I think there's over $1 million in something called set containment, which is just people making sure that people can't get in. That wouldn't have been true of the first movie. But I think it was always the spirit of this film was that it is a fantastical story, but it is a very intimate one too. And I think it would have betrayed it to somehow become something with 300 people behind the scenes every day. I think it's the way they make movies.
Okay, we have one more question. Time for one more.
I really like this film. It's really beautiful shooting. The shot, it's the scenario. Especially toward the ending, the location, the kind of like a big, the wide open on the ice.
Yeah.
Could you talk about the challenging for the location, scenario,
Sure.
how the weather challenging, or these kind of things?
Oh, absolutely. And Guillermo Navarro is the cameraman who I think did a beautiful job. Throughout, this obviously is a film that goes around the world, and we didn't go around the world, so that we created, that little bit of Egypt in Baton Rouge, and London was in New Orleans, and, all that with then, shots that we picked off in places. And then the field, right from the start, right from reading it, I really, there was an option to go back to the field that had been in previous movies, but I really did see it as this vast expanse of snow of white, and to make it very formal. Like maybe it was almost like inspiration from the book cover, but it was like chess pieces moving across a board, and the kind of power and majesty of the Balturi against the Cullens, who were just kind of, defenseless and outnumbered. You wanted to reflect that in the landscape. Where did you shoot that? With the big field scene? That is on and I sort of hate to give this away, but on a green screen stage in Baton Rouge. Yeah.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much.